Alright, my name is Annel and the topic I'll be covering today is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD. My opponent's claim is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder is overdiagnosed. My response to her claim is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder should be diagnosed. My opponent's four secondary claims are symptoms of ADHD can be attributed to other things. ADHD is not a biological disorder. The diagnosis of ADHD is too subjective and broad, leading to overdiagnosis. Research sometimes manipulates the research in order to straighten their credence when they say that ADHD is a legitimate neurological disorder. My response to your secondary claims are ADHD is a broad category that can show up in different ways in different people. ADHD is a brain-based biological disorder. Lastly, the American Medical Association concluded ADHD as a neurological condition. My opponent's first secondary claim, symptoms of ADHD can be attributed to other things, and third secondary claim, the diagnosis of ADHD is too subjective and broad, leading to overdiagnosis. Her supporting claim to this is deficits in visual perception, motor activities, visual interrogation can be major contributors to the hyperactivity and distractibility so frequently identified as ADHD diagnosed children. Her other supporting claim is symptoms of ADHD are very common among the Amish, who reject television and computers. My response to her claim is ADHD is a broad category that can show up in different ways in different people. In an ADHD study, children with ADHD also suffer from other disorders. Some children with ADHD may also have learning disabilities, behavioral disorders, or disorders of mood such as depression, anxiety, problems with planning, memory, schoolwork, motor skills, social skills, control of emotions, and response to disciplines are common. Sleep problems can also be more frequent. In an article, ADHD can either be in the lifetime for a short or a long time. Experts believe that the hyperactivity part of the disorder can diminish with age, although the problems with organization and attention often remain. Although some people may grow out of their symptoms, more than half of all kids who have ADHD will continue to show signs of condition as adults. Researcher Ron Jong from the American Medical Association has claimed that ADHD has many causes. Among these causes are the family. ADHD often runs in families, abnormal brain development, brain injuries occurring before, during, or after birth. My opponent's supporting evidence for her first claim makes her contradict herself because ADHD is a disorder that does not stand alone. In many cases, people also suffer from other disorders. Also, comparing our society to the Amish is comparing the 1930s to 2012. Our society and their society is so different from one another that disorders such as ADHD could possibly not be found within that society due to their daily routines different from ours, that this allows such disorders to occur. But this does not mean that Amish people will never suffer from ADHD. My opponent's second claim that ADHD is not a biological disorder. Her supporting claim to this is Dr. Castellon from the NIMH, National Institute of Mental Health, confessed to Fred A. Bonham, a neurologist, in letter stating, "We do not have met the burden to demonstrate the specific pathophysiology, what we believe underlies this condition." My response to this is ADHD is a brain-based biological disorder. In an article, A Biological Disorder, we know that ADHD is a brain-based biological disorder. Brain imaging studies using PET scanners show that brain metabolism in children with ADHD is lower in the areas of the brain that control attention, social judgment, and movement. In a research named 7 Core Competencies for an ADHD Coach, there seems to be two major components of the brain that affect ADHD: biochemical imbalances and structural differences. They are known to interact with each other in complex ways. My third claim explains this even further with proof that the AMA, the American Medical Association, supports that ADHD is a disorder that does exist and should not be ignored. Which brings me to the final claim. American Medical Association concluded ADHD is a neurological condition. My opponent's third claim is the American Medical Association concluded ADHD as a neurological condition. In an ADHD study by the American Medical Association, the ADHD genetic research study at the National Institute of Health compared brain images of children with and without ADHD. Brain images of children with ADHD show differences compared to children without ADHD. For example, in some children with ADHD, certain parts of the brain are smaller or less active than the brains of children without ADHD. These changes may be linked to specific brain chemicals that are needed for tasks, such as sustaining attention and regulating activity levels. In another research, the 7 core competencies for ADHD coach, the neurology of ADHD affects the executive functioning of the brain. These functions impact working memory activation, arousal, emotional control, internalized language, and complex problem solving when using coaching, when they provide powerful means for helping clients to understand and to turn lives around. In conclusion, the American Medical Association is a key health information management role by collecting, maintaining, and disseminating primary research data. Their credits for demonstrating proof that ADHD is a disorder that exists and what it can do to individuals should not be ignored, but rather acknowledged. For this reason, I believe since so many research has been made on this disorder, that wrongly claiming it to be overdiagnosed is as if claiming to ignore ADHD as a whole, when it exists within our society and should be treated. After hearing the evidence presented to you today, it is considerable to say that ADHD is a disorder that should be diagnosed.
Annel, you've got so much information and you're repeating some of the claims so often that it often is unclear what the inference is that you're drawing on some of these points. And your reading is undermining that a little bit too. I think you need to kind of step out of the reading mode more and talk to the audience a little bit and explain what the point is that you're trying to make. At the very end, I thought that you did the clearest job on that when you're talking about why, with the identification of all of this research that there is in fact a brain function that goes on here. That means that this is a real disease and that there are real differences in the kids that are suffering from this. And so the AMA is correct in saying that it needs to be diagnosed and that it is a problem. I thought that that was the clearest part of the argument that you had. The rest of the time it simply sounds like you're doing a data dump. We've got a whole bunch of information on ADHD, which how does that contrast with the position that the advocate is taking? In some places, it sounds like you said the same point 3 times in a row in setting up the point. I think you're overdoing the organization and the counterclaims. It might be something that's easy to follow in a written argument, but in an oral argument, I found it particularly difficult because the sentences are often so familiar. If you listen to the first part of that third point in your argument, it sounds like you said the same sentence 3 times in a row, and I'm not really sure what any of them ended up meaning. You sometimes just, like I said, I've said to other people, sometimes you just need to simplify and say, look, we know it's a real disease. Here's the data that shows it's a real disease. The only challenge they have to whether or not it's a real disease is that some kids get overdiagnosed or overmedicated, but those, that there might be harms doesn't prove that it's not a disease. It just proves that we don't always know what the best thing to do about it is. And all kinds of authorities acknowledge that this is a legitimate disease, so we might have a disagreement about what the best way to handle it is, but the notion that it is overdiagnosed or that there isn't really something here just seems to run contrary to all the scientific evidence I'm presenting you. That's as complicated as it needs to get. And you're kind of micromanaging some of the secondary claims and putting too much in it. Like I said, for oral arguments, it's really tough to follow something like that. If I was taking a flow sheet of the argument and wrote every single one of your claims down with all the evidence included in it, I might be able to follow what you're saying, but a casual listener isn't going to be able to do that. And I was trying to listen pretty closely. I wasn't taking a flow of everything because I've got an outline to follow. I could be able to figure that out myself. All right, so I think that's kind of the trouble there. You seem pretty thorough. The one other thing that I think you need to do is you need to contrast a little bit more what you've come up with to what the advocate has said. They've made some challenge here. Well, what evidence did they provide for that challenge? And here is my evidence that comes from the AMA. Here's a brain scan study of 3,000 kids that found this result. You kind of